And I'm back. This is a middle perch on the internet. I'm MTK on the MIC live. Today is October 16th. It's the 289th day of 2019. There's just 76 days left. 76 days left. In this year of 2019, it's just 2.5 weeks until daylight savings time for those of you for whom that matters ends. That's right. So on Sunday, not this Sunday and not the next Sunday, but the Sunday after that, 2.5 weeks from now, we'll all be changing our clocks forward. Last night I went to see a competition between guitar players, which is one of the longest running competitions among guitar players in the country, perhaps even in the world. It's called Guitar Wars, and it's been hosted by Alamo Music, one of the oldest music stores in Texas. And they have conducted this competition for many, many years, 31 years. And so each contestant gets up, and for 2 minutes they play, just 2 minutes, but they have to shred. And there are 4 categories. You have your bass category, you have your acoustic guitar category, and you have your electric guitar. Sorry, 3 categories. Electric guitar category. And there are first place and second place in each category. And so that's 8 winners. 7 of the 8 winners got guitars as their prize, like brand new guitars from Alamo Music and from the vendors who were Fender was one of them, Taylor guitars, Ibanez, good name, brand name guitars. And these guys got up there and they shredded and played guitar, and it was fun. It was fun. I put up a clip, 10-minute clip, which is just excerpts of a handful of the players, but it also has all the winners. And from what I understand, Alamo Music has a pretty active YouTube site. I went ahead and subscribed, so sooner or later they'll probably put up their videos of the event as well. I'm also attempting today to get the lighting. See, my problem is I want a wider frame, and I'm not quite getting it from this situation. I'm liking the mic being above, though, because it really allows me more freedom to kind of not have to worry about it, basically. And it's bringing the music in nicely, too, so that's success. All this tweaking will eventually come to some standard state. Will it? I don't know. Maybe it won't. One of the things I'm well known for is constantly changing. I change the way my face looks all the time. I'll have no beard, or I'll have a full beard, or I'll have just a mustache, or I'll have just a goatee, or a Van Dyke, or a what I call the Anatoly France, the look with the broken thing, and the constantly changing my look. Don't know why. Part of it is anonymity, a desire for anonymity. And yet that's sort of contradictory to my social behavior, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe it's because from years, I don't like being labeled. I don't like being told what I am. I don't like being described. I don't like being fixed. Never have. For me, it's a constant thing, life, a challenge, and the interesting thing about it is to constantly be inventing one's self. So to be fixed as something is something I don't like. That's how I landed on artist, because artist is everything, isn't it? You're a writer. No, I do some art stuff. No, you're an artist. No, I write. You're an actor. No, I direct. You're a director. No, I've acted, and I've written, and I've done other things. Oh, well, you do radio. No, I've done stuff in front of the camera and behind the camera. Oh, well, you do collage. No, I painted. Well, oh, well, you paint murals. No, I do collage. Well, you're a musician. No. To be a generalist, a jack of all trades and a master of some has been my methodology, and I am not in the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or the Marines, and I didn't join the academy, so there's nobody telling me what to do, and so I lack the discipline of those who have been forced to listen to others, but I have, I think, the fresh mind of someone who is consistently thinking outside the box and constantly devouring information about a wide variety of topics in hopes of synthesizing something new each time. So I don't make a lot of stuff, but the things I make, I think, have a acute and focused communication. But sometimes they're too deep for people to understand. So I don't know what to do in those instances. It'd be nice to have a curator or a Max Brode or somebody to come along and help out with that. I need a wiki page. I need someone to help me make a Wikipedia page for MT Karthik. There's got to be there's newspaper articles of me doing things here in this town in the 1970s that are citable. There's a critique of my work elsewhere that's citable. And there's evidence of my work for 3.5 decades that only exists in the controlled space of my archive because I've been very controlling about the data. Another one of the reasons why I don't like Facebook. From the very beginning, I'm like, wait, what? I give you everything, Zuckerberg? You get to own everything I post here. It drove me directly to the blog. I didn't want to have someone else own everything I put up on the net. That's not cool. So, yeah, and I can also pay an intern who wants to come by and help me out with some of this computer stuff. For example, I could use somebody to hook me up with my wiki page, someone to help me get a donate button, establish a feedback so I can be dialoguing more in this program. I mean, right now there's the chat window, and Mr. One Viewer, who might be the NSA, never says anything. But if there was a way to increase the dialogue, that'd be cool. And I kind of want an audio dialogue. Chat window is not satisfactory. So like a phone call show, like I used to do on the radio, would be cool. I'd like to host a call-in show. That should be a methodology here that we can achieve, right? So if there's someone out there who wants to come work for me for a few days and help me set up the mechanism for doing that, I will pay you a small sum of money to help me do that. And if there's someone out there who wants to whip up a proper Wikipedia page for me, I'll be happy to pay you for that. Yeah. So Guitar Wars was fun. We talk a lot about synchronicity, or things happening in concert, sometimes outside of our own prediction or control, and sometimes we'll say, oh wow, it all just worked out, man, the universe just gave me this thing, right? I'm pretty statistical about a lot of things, so I think what happens is if you stay on top of the news and if you're running and swimming in the current of what is live on the spectrum at any given moment, say like I do, like I watch all the sports data, I watch the news data, I'm watching the weather data, I'm watching stuff from around the world. It's constantly swimming in my mind, right? From my training as a newsman and from my just basic interest in the world. So sometimes I can say something like the letter to LeBron James I wrote, which was the short story about being more political, and then having instantly a day later everything blow up about China and Maury. It's coincidental, but it's also because I'm swimming in the stream of things. Now that can happen in both ways if you're connected to enough people. For example, when I was on the air and I had 500,000 listeners every day, or 2 million listeners at the max locally, or up to 6 million on the national show, things that I communicate could then become spread pretty widely. And then I know I'm the source of them. It doesn't matter that I'm the source of them. It would be cool if people said, yo, I learned that from MTK. But I've gotten old enough to where now I've just given up on that notion. Academics demand it, so they all know who did and said what. But I know I beat a lot of people to a lot of stuff over the years. A lot of my quotes and comments have been coming back to me, reverberated back. I don't think that's a grandeur if I know how it happened. An example is during the Iraq War, the run-up to the Iraq War, Pacifica Radio had a national program, 6 million something listeners plus, and it was in advance of the attack, or in the middle of the war, actually. It was April of 2003, just a few weeks after the bombing of Baghdad. And I opened that show with Amy Goodman in New York and me in Los Angeles, and we hosted a program. And I was able to produce about 20 minutes worth of content out of our newsroom, which means I was able to get some really radical thoughts out there. One of them being that there was a grad student at Johns Hopkins who had written a paper that was all about the petrodollar and how it was involved in the situation at hand. And I made sure that got out there. So now 6 million people at least minimum heard that. And then a few months later, I started hearing the petrodollar story come back to me and bubble up a little bit. Not enough. But it was interesting how both disinformation and information were reverberated back when I dropped that piece to the largest amount of an audience. It's one of the instances where I could see both very distinctly. But no one ever contacted me to let me be the authority of how to do that. And so it went away as conspiratorial. A lot of what I'm doing here from the days when I wrote or gave the interview Embrace the Gadfly many, many years ago is attempting to stay just slightly outside of the creation of a societal norm in order to critique it fairly, not to create, what do you want to call it, contradictory points just for the sake of contradiction, or to create conspiratorial thought just for the sake of conspiracy, but to be able to investigate everything. I would say I learned this first from Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was a huge influence on me. And when I was a young man, I got to see him here at Trinity University. My friend Randy Klein and I skipped school to go see Carl Sagan speak. That's the kind of nerds we were. And I got a quote from him in answer to one of my questions that I ended up putting in a senior paper on genetic engineering. I can even remember the title of that paper. It was, "You Can Change Your Pants, We Can Change Your Genes," GENES. But Carl Sagan was a big influence because of both Cosmos and just his intellectual approach to philology, and to learning and to being... I don't love that buzz right there, folks. Aware of things, learning about a lot of different things. And Sagan had a consistent behavior, which I really liked as a scientist, where he would say, "Well, why don't we go talk to the mediums, the witches, and the superstitious people? Why don't we go use science to test their what they're saying to us, instead of just creating two camps?" Where we just say, those people who don't know anything about science are so ignorant, and they just say, those scientists are so rational, they can't even feel with the tentacles and feelers what I can feel and experience. Carl Sagan was very specific about how we shouldn't do that. Why wouldn't we, as scientific community, want to investigate every single bizarre thing that is told to us? I think we should. But he also had a great line, I remember, when he said, they called... How'd it go? It was pretty funny. They called Galileo a clown. They called Einstein a clown. But they also called Bozo a clown, right? So there's like a gag there. I'm paraphrasing. But the gag is that, sometimes crazy stuff is crazy. Other times crazy stuff can be the edge of the avant-garde, the direction it's all going. So a lot of what I've been trying to do is stay in the avant-garde. I'm 52. I can't get along with a lot of people my age because they can't keep up with the millennials. And the millennials don't want anything to do with me because though I've got one foot in their world, the depth and breadth of what I know is more than they can handle a lot of the time. It's too much. So staying in the avant-garde has gotten me to a place where I have to synthesize the information I've gathered So now we're talking about the generalized information that is both from multiple disciplines and also the generalized information that's a result of 3.5 decades of reading magazines, journals, the news, newspapers, and culture, and experiencing the birth of the digital generations, being the first people to ever send an email, being the first people to ever use Gopher, being there in 1992 and 3 when the protocols were established for the creation of the internet, the World Wide Web. And being a college student at that time, I wasn't a child. So my generation is trapped in a little tiny window here. The two large population bubbles, the boomers above us and the millennials below us, are trapped in a language problem that they're having. And we, between them, can see that, but there are so few of us, and we are so factionalized and spread apart that the dialogue is not actually happening. A middle perch here on the internet with your host, MTK, is about attempting to create better dialogue. I call it intergenerational or transgenerational dialogue. What have been some of my methodologies for this? Well, I try to befriend 20-year-olds. That's a good one. I know so many 50-year-olds who are so exasperated and frustrated by them that they can't even talk to them, won't even talk to them. They just throw their hands up. All right, well, that's not going to work. So part of me has been to try to befriend them. Well, that's kind of hard in public space when you're 52 and they're 25. But I can achieve it in certain places, I'm friendly, I'm outgoing. I try to learn about what's contemporary. I try not to sound like a square or a dad bro, but to also communicate about contemporary things, right? But another way is through the internet. I'll give you a good example. I'm a guy who's been using JTV since it's been first on way back in 07, 08, and then Vaughn Live and iVlog and Ustream and a bunch of these video sites that have never quite taken off while YouTube became the standard, bought by Google in 06 February, I believe. These guys kept trying to become that, and tech was not there yet in some instances, and in other instances the use of it hadn't gelled. In the case of JTV, they weren't making money, but a lot of us were watching and having fun on there. And then the gamers took off. And so they realized, whoa, this could be a big thing. And that's how Twitch was born. Twitch was born from JTV. So in that community, what's interesting is if you go to the miscellaneous tab, you can watch contemporary movies, old movies, current movies, all the Coen brothers movies. And they're cast in a window by different casters. And you have a live chat. Well, in the live chat, you all have separate handles, so you're anonymous. This also means that you can be of any age, and you don't necessarily discover the age of other people. Plus, there's probably a lot of catfishing going on, but not really in those venues. Say we're watching a Coen Brothers movie together in that venue. From the comments of a handful of people, I can tell who saw it back when it came out, who it's due to. And so there have been opportunities in that chat window environment for 10, 11 years that I have rationalized when friends of mine are like, why do you do that? You spend so much time on that thing. Part of me is it's because I learned the jargon of the 20-year-olds and of the 18, well, no teenagers, but 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, and 40-year-olds from watching movies with them. Some movies that were from their time that I know nothing about. Some movies that are from my time that we all have opinions about but are different because of when and where we were born. That is a methodology I've used. Interns. I have interns. Never sleep with the intern. But I have interns. Never sleep with the intern. That's the fastest way to not ever be accused of sleeping with the intern. I don't know how else to say that to those fucking idiots. But anyway, rarely, but occasionally I'll have interns. I'm very picky, so it's very hard for me to find someone I like. And when I do, that's another way that I can connect with their generation. And often the interns I have are artists, so they've got fresh data. If you see an intern in here, then you know there's somebody that I've vetted and that they have my reference. Okay, if I was in the academy, another way I would do it is obviously with my students. And you hope that the academy and the students have a better rapport than they did when I was in school. Because, that's it. One of the biggest reasons why I'm not in the academy is because it's an echo chamber. And worse, it's been corporatized since the 90s. I wrote about this in an essay that's called Plug Unplug. You can read that on the archive site. It's pretty fascinating in my opinion, but it's the detailed moment that I felt like the corporatization of the American education system fully happened. And that was very bad for the intelligence of this nation, for the culture of this nation, for the richness of our education, for the thing that used to draw people here. That was very bad. because it immediately made the edges of the thing that where we need to be able to pay people to think outside the box impossible, because there wasn't any yield from it. And it birthed a virulent and very base rationale about what college is for. Uh, it would be great if less people went nowadays and went for better reasons. Instead, the universities just sucked everybody up to take the money, and the loans have become a huge problem. It's an absurd problem. It's yet another way in which the United States of America has failed us, not just in education. I mean, healthcare, but in education as well. So that's the description of a, of a feudal or a, aristocracy or a plutocracy or an oligarchy. That's not the description of a secular democracy living at peace and in harmony. When the millennials talk about wanting more socialism and the adults think they're just irrational children who don't know what real politic is, this is the gulf that we're trying to bridge. They're wrong. And they're not quite educated enough to practically, I think, express themselves. But they also have the corporates on their side and the tools by which they fix elections. Change the truth using powerful media, change the truth using social truths. It's a very amazing situation, and the lie of it has to be shattered. The United States is not the greatest country in the world. It may have been at one time, but it certainly isn't now. And the issue is that there are multiple issues that are not being addressed, and the quality of life is degrading. And it's gotten ugly. So we need to be honest about that, and we need to be clear that we want to make it great, not make it great again. That's a fallacy. The notion that what Trump is doing is making it great again is a fallacy. What he's doing is aiding those who would maintain the current inequity, and using language to cover it up so that the ignorant can be manipulated to agree with him and them. And that is not a smart way for us to proceed. We've got to learn to get along. We've got to learn to care for the planet better. We've got to learn to be sensible, not just corporate-minded. It's okay to lose money for great benefit. If you manage that properly, and if you're efficient and you're smart about it, and we applied our great American intellect to it, we could spend more and have a much greater quality of life. Spend more and have a much greater quality of life for all of us. Spend more and have a much greater quality of life so that we can all be at peace and be together and grow together. This requires a lot more than what we've been given in terms of tools, and mentally it requires a lot more of you millennials and a lot more of you boomers to put down the hatred, put down the negativity, put down the spite, put down the pettiness. Stop being butthurt by the tiniest things and attempt to reach across the aisle to those with whom you disagree. When I was at UT, I was known as an orator, and it took me to radio, and I liked radio. I liked radio a lot. It was cool to have listeners. That's what I miss as an audience. I admit that. But the problem is that because we've been moved into such a hyper-corporatized society in which all the media have been bought by a small number of people, it's very hard to sign on now with anyone, because they will dictate to me what I can and cannot say, and they will also ask me to say things that I cannot say. So there's the reason why we're at an intersection there. If that system could understand what I am capable of and give me the venue, then we would be talking about something very different, and with a lot more people and in dialogue. I'd love to see that happen, especially with a phone calling show. That would be cool. Where we could talk. That I think would be great. Here's the hit single, I think. Said a word.
shit now, and you never say a word. The elections are fixed. The wars are endless. The surveillance is total, and you never say a word. You never said a word. You never said a word. It's all going to shit now. And you never say a word.
You Never Say a Word, the hit single by MTK on the MIC here at A Middle Perch on the internet. Live with MTK on the MIC, your host, appearing occasionally and every once in a while. We now return you to your other programming.